The first look, when silence becomes the message. Let's be honest, we all expect closure when something ends. We want that one final talk, a goodbye text, maybe even a reason. But when she suddenly stops replying, when your messages sit there unread, when her silence replaces the sound of her voice, it hits differently. Ignoring someone isn't just a pause in communication, it's a way of saying everything without saying anything. What makes it sting is how it catches us off guard. One moment, everything feels normal. She's laughing, talking, maybe even sharing small pieces of her day. Then suddenly, it's quiet. You refresh your messages, scroll back through old conversations hoping to find a clue you missed. But there's nothing, just silence. That's when reality starts to set in. She's not just busy, she's choosing not to reply. And somehow, that truth hurts more than any official goodbye ever could. Silence doesn't just end the story, it erases it, piece by piece. And the worst part? You're left wondering whether you mattered at all.
Why ignoring hurts so much? There's actually a psychological reason behind this. Studies show that social rejection, especially in the form of being ignored, activates the same part of the brain that responds to physical pain. So when someone we care about suddenly goes quiet, our brain reads it as danger, as loss. It's not just emotional, it's biological. When she ignores you, it's not just that she's not talking, it's that she's taking away your sense of connection, your sense of being seen. Humans are wired to crave acknowledgement. It's how we feel safe and valued. So when that acknowledgement disappears, it feels like being invisible. You start replaying every conversation, wondering what you said wrong, what changed, or if you imagine the connection altogether. What's painful is that ignoring someone isn't loud, it's silent. But that silence screams louder than any argument. Because at least when someone argues with you, it means they still care enough to respond. Ignoring you, on the other hand, feels like you've already been erased from their world.
The hidden power of silence. Now, let's not forget, silence isn't always just avoidance. Sometimes it's a message. It's a way of saying, I'm done, without wasting words. And ironically, it's one of the most powerful forms of communication. The problem is, when we're the ones being ignored, we don't see power, we see pain. But think about it. Silence forces us to listen to our thoughts. It pushes us to sit with our own feelings, even the uncomfortable ones. When she stops replying, when the calls stop coming, we suddenly face a mirror we've been avoiding. All the what-ifs, the regrets, the things we could have done differently, they all show up at once. That's the cruel beauty of being ignored. It doesn't just tell us we lost her, it tells us something about ourselves. Maybe we relied too much on her attention to feel okay. Maybe we never learned how to be comfortable with uncertainty. Silence exposes those cracks, not to punish us, but to make us see what we've been avoiding.
When goodbye feels easier. Here's the irony. Sometimes an actual goodbye hurts less. A goodbye gives us something to hold on to. It's final, yes, but at least it's clear. There's a conversation, an ending, a point where both people acknowledge what's over. But when she ignores you, there's no ending, just an open wound that never gets to heal properly. You keep waiting for closure that never comes. Every notification, every ring, every random memory becomes a reminder that she's choosing silence over you. That's what makes ignoring so cruel. It's a slow burn. You can't move on because technically nothing ended. You're stuck in between, no longer together, but not officially apart. And that's why ignoring cuts deeper. It's not one clean break. It's tiny cuts over time, each one taking a little piece of your peace.
what silence says about control. There's also something about control here. When someone ignores you, they take the power in the situation. You're left waiting, wondering, hoping, while they decide if and when they'll respond. That imbalance hurts because it reminds us that caring too much can sometimes feel like a weakness. In relationships or even friendships, communication is the bridge. But silence? Silence breaks that bridge completely. And when one person walks away without saying a word, the other is left shouting across a gap that only gets wider. But here's something worth remembering. Just because someone chooses silence doesn't mean your voice doesn't matter. It just means they weren't ready to handle it. Sometimes silence says more about the one giving it than the one receiving it. Maybe she's trying to protect herself. Maybe she doesn't know how to face the situation. Or maybe she thinks silence is easier than honesty. But for the person left behind, that silence feels like punishment.
The emotional weight of being ignored. Let's talk about what it really feels like. It's not just sadness, it's confusion, frustration, and self-doubt all mixed together. You start second-guessing yourself. Was I too much? Not enough? Did I say something wrong? It's like your mind won't stop trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. And what's worse is that ignoring doesn't just affect your emotions, it affects your confidence. You start questioning your worth, your desirability, even your ability to read people. Being ignored makes you feel like your presence never mattered, and that's a heavy feeling to carry. But we have to remind ourselves, it's not our job to chase clarity that someone refuses to give. Sometimes silence isn't meant to be understood. It's meant to be accepted. And as hard as that sounds, acceptance is the only way to take back control of your peace.
Healing from the silence. Moving on from being ignored isn't easy, but it's possible. The first step is to understand that silence is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their choice. People deal with emotions differently. Some confront, some avoid. And when she chooses to ignore, that's her coping mechanism, not your failure. Healing starts when we stop chasing answers and start focusing on ourselves. Because the truth is, you'll never find peace waiting for someone else's response. You find it when you start responding to yourself with kindness, with honesty, with patience. Over time, you begin to see that the silence that once hurt you actually helped you. It taught you who you are without constant validation. It showed you that closure doesn't always come from the other person. It often comes from within.
When silence becomes strength, here's where things change. There comes a point when the silence that once broke you becomes the same silence that builds you. You stop checking your phone, you stop replaying old messages, and you start hearing something new. Your own thoughts, your own peace. Ignoring her back isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your energy. When we stop begging for attention, we start giving it to ourselves. That's when we realize that sometimes the best response is no response at all. Not because we don't care anymore, but because we finally learned that peace is louder than chaos. And here's the twist. Once you stop chasing the noise, silence doesn't hurt anymore. It heals.